Hey, Jack here from Spalted Woodsman Green Woodworking, and today I'm going to cover how to make a shrink pot. So the shrink pot's been around for centuries. It's essentially a hollowed out piece of round wood when it's green, and in the bottom you attach a piece of dry wood in the bottom to make the bottom of it, and it sits into a groove, and basically the whole thing shrinks over time and forms a solid bottom. These things are great for holding almost anything in the kitchen, I guess. You could throw your spoons in there, you could throw some pencils in there, you can use them for a multitude of things. They're just a kind of really neat, handy little container to have around. It's also a bit of a conversation piece because you can kind of see it still feels like just a trunk of a tree or a small branch or something like that. And yeah, they're pretty cool. I like them anyways. So I'm going to show you how to make one. So a few minutes ago I went out into the backyard, and in my pile of green birch from last fall, which is still wet. It's not green anymore, but it's still wet enough that it will shrink, and it will form a good shrink pot. And I just cut, this is going to be a small guy. I just cut off about a 4-inch piece here, 3.5 to 4 inches long, and it's about 3.5 inches across also. So the first step to do with this, I'm going to see if I can keep the bark on this one. I'm going to see. It may not remain on there. It may be too loose. But the first step to do is we're going to bore a hole in the center all the way through from one side to the other, and then we can start covering our shrink pot out, removing the rest of the material. So I'm going to start with a 1-inch spade bit. It should do the trick. Just has to make a small hole. It just has to make the hole down to the middle first, and we're going to give that a shot. See how that works. There, now we've bored through from both sides. This is how I do it. It may not be how everybody does it. I'm going to be using the Arbortech hole gouge, ball gouge I guess you call it, to kind of hollow out the rest. And if it was plugged in, it would work. So after reviewing the video, I kind of noticed that it stopped as I was starting to gouge this out. And this is where we're at right now. We have basically a wooden tube. The one end here, I've got the edges down to about 3/8 of an inch. And the other side here, I got the outside walls of this down to about 1/2 an inch. I just want to refine that a little bit more. So I'm just going to I'll start the Arbortech, and we'll get a little bit of footage of that. So now that the walls are ground down to anywhere between 7/16 to 3/8 of an inch, I'm going to smooth up the inside of this. And the tool that I use for that is either a gouge, but I sometimes find that a spoon knife works just as well. And this, of course, is the Beavercraft hook knife. And we can come in here and we can pare away the sides a little bit and smooth it up. Just with that twisting action, a little bit of pulling action, we'll clean this all up. So we're getting in here and we're just kind of scraping this off in a sort of a spiral motion. I find this works quite efficiently. My dogs are now wanting in on the action too. And once we get that smoothed up a little bit, we can just take it and we can rotate it around. And we're going to get back in here, go from this direction. Going to take off any of the high spots. I think somebody wants on video. Too dirty in here right now. I'd have to vacuum my dogs. So I finished cleaning up the inside. So that's relatively smooth. I'm using the spoon knife from Beavercraft. Seems to do a good job. Just kind of slice the material out, smooth it up as smooth as you can get. Next step is to find a piece of material for the bottom and trace it out. So I've traced out the inside, and now I'm going to make a mark here and on here. So you can see the corresponding mark is here and here, so this lines up. Next step is to just kind of, it will be to cut this out to shape, and we'll go from there. So off camera I took that piece and just kind of cut the corners off of it until it was, you know, that kind of shape. Now I can just come back in and pare these off with a chisel and with a sloyd, and we will make this the right shape. So I finished shaping the bottom so that when we line up the two marks, it actually drops into place. Actually, it's a little bit on the small side, but it will shrink around. So I'm just taking a knife and I've thinned up this edge a little bit. Put a profile on it so that it's a little more narrow here, and that's going to act as it shrinks around it. That'll actually tighten up within the inside the groove. Now there's a couple ways of cutting the groove in the bottom. We could use the a sloyd knife to mark it. Make sure I'm on the bottom. Here we go. We want to come up about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, and we can just kind of follow the edge with the sloyd. And by luck I matched up with my first line, and then we're going to take a second line about 1/8 of an inch above that. Actually, it's the thickness of the bottom. the bottom edge, which is about 1/8 of an inch right now. I'm just going to groove that out. And we've met back with the beginning. I'm going to take a small chisel, small gouge, if I can find it. I'm just going to gouge that in, like so. There we go, we got that cut. I'll go back in with my slide again, and we're just going to trim a little bit off of the inside. I'm just deepening that groove a little bit. Back to the groove itself on the bottom edge, the edge closest to the camera. I'm going to go back around it again. You can see some of those chips are falling out right now. Gone a little bit off my line there. That's okay. Yeah, you can kind of see where the groove is forming. I can come back in again with another chisel. That's a 1/4 inch. I'll try this 1/4 inch first. So I got a little 1/4 inch chisel here, which is too wide. But we come in, chop and twist, chop and twist. I got the bevel side back. The straight side is doing the cutting into the edge here. I'm just going to run around. So after a series of cuts, we'll get a groove going here. And we'd like that groove to be about 3/16 of an inch, approximately. That's what I do anyways. There's no science to this. You just make yourself a groove. It's about quarter the thickness of the outside, or half the thickness of the outside. And there we go, we're getting a bit of a groove on the go. And then we can come back in here, pare this edge down. Also, this is the bottom edge facing the camera, like the one closest to the camera. And we can just come back in here, dig that out, just like that. So we're forming the groove. Now ideally, this plug for the bottom would be a lot tighter than this. Now actually, it should have been a fairly tight insert to get that inserted. This one's quite loose, but if we line these two marks, there's a mark on the bottom, there's a mark on the outer wall, and we slide those two pieces together. Oops, it's upside down, that's the reason why. And we slide those two pieces together. I wanted this to be tighter. We slide those two pieces together like that. And that is actually sitting in there fairly loosely right at the moment. But this is going to shrink. And what happens there, it shrinks. Same as this one. This was very similar. The groove was cut in there, and this one is now there's no gaps, and it's very, very, very tight. And that's what will happen to this guy. So that is how you rough out so that is how you rough out a shrink pot. So I have one here that I did in the fall, and this here is a shrink pot that I had put together last fall, and using the same methods. This here is dried in nice and tight. I left the bark on this. It's a piece of white birch. The outer layer of bark, this is like the inner layer, so the outer layer like this, the paper, actually was coming off on this one. So I peeled it off and left it with some of the inclusions and all that kind of cool stuff going on there. I still yet just to smooth up the top and the bottom. And then that one will be ready to go. As for finishing, I haven't finished any of my pots of yet with any sort of a varnish or a finish or any sort. I'm probably just going to throw some walnut oil on here, as that's what I do with my spoons, and let that dry. Put a couple coats on, and yeah, let's hope you enjoyed this little project. And I'll do an update, and I'll show you this in about a week or two, and we will see how much that the pot has shrunk. We'll just gauge it off of the bottom plug, and we'll see how that works out. So this has been Jack from the Spalted Woodsman Green Woodworking, and if you like this content, feel free to subscribe or comment. If you have any experience with shrink pots, and if you could share a little bit of wisdom, that would be greatly appreciated. So feel free to comment on this video. So that's Jack from the Spalted Woodsman Green Woodworking, and I will be seeing you spoon.